Welcome to the Wealthy's Circle podcast, where we take a deeper dive into this year's finalists and winners from our wealthmanagement.com 2020 industry awards. These interviews cover the challenges, innovations, and trends in the wealth management industry and the individuals working to help advisors better help their clients.
Welcome, everybody. I'm David Armstrong. I'm the editor-in-chief of wealthmanagement.com. I am joined here on our Wealthy's Circle podcast with Adrian Johnstone, the co-founder and chief commercial officer of Practifi. Adrian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, David, thank you. I'm excited to be here and talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. You guys were a finalist this year in our technology providers in the CRM category. It's always a challenging category. It's a big one. So congratulations on that, and thanks for all your support.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it was our first time entering, so we were very excited to make it through as a finalist. Would have loved to take away the award, but kudos to Redtail. They're a well-established firm and tough for us to beat.
Well, one thing about these awards is our judges are our judges, and they vote independently. We can't always get them to do what we want, but it's a solid category, so getting to be a finalist is great. The way that I'm starting these things out, I just want to ask you, kind of the elevator pitch. What problem do financial advisors in the U.S. have that Practifi can help them solve?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. It's a problem that's not only in the U.S. Practifi, we work globally. We get clients in 4 countries at the moment and continuing to expand that footprint. The primary challenge is that the technology that advisors are using today, it's either very disjointed. We see lots of siloed technology. We hear a lot about this in the industry, where there's bits of this kind of best practice buying spree that people went on, but they didn't integrate things. So we see that kind of fractured technology space, and Practifi pulls all that together as an integrated platform. But also, we have so much technology that is focused around, I guess, the traditional CRM, the piece that is, how do I look after just the client relationship? But there's so much more to running an advice business. And so Practifi we use the term business management platform. We have CRM at our core, but we provide technology that allows you to run every aspect of the firm. And we hook in and integrate, whether that's your compliance team needing somewhere to manage their day-to-day, or your investment team, whether it's making sure that your collaboration across the management group to, say, the finance team. We're really a kind of a full end-to-end business platform.
Yeah, and I like that idea of business management as opposed to customer management. Probably advisory firms, like other industries, find themselves spending most of their time inside their CRMs, right? Even though there's other tentacles out there of technology platforms that they use, the CRM really is sort of the beating heart.
Yeah, look, it should be the core. Unfortunately, I guess there are just too many of those platforms, even in CRM land, that are often legacy server-based things that are not well integrated to anything else. And so what, unfortunately, they finish up with is a desktop that is full of a disparate set of disconnected apps that are open. What we seek to do is to really give everyone within a firm, not just the advisors or the client service team, but everyone, one place to log into where they can drive their entire day.
Right, and you are custom built for advisory firms. That's your focus. That's
it. It's all we do. We are built natively on the Salesforce platform. So I guess in local industry terminology, where we'd be called a Salesforce overlay, we're much deeper than that. We don't just rebadge Salesforce. We've built and refined over many years a full vertical kind of solution here. But globally, all we care about is getting wealth professionals the best technology that they can. And
I think a couple of years ago, we'd probably be forgiven for not necessarily in the U.S. in any way for having heard of Practifi. You guys have a big presence in Australia. Australia, I think of, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, in my eye, the closest that the U.S. has to a wealth management industry counterpart in the world, right? I mean, Europe's a little bit different. Australia seems to have kind of a very similar kind of industry structure that the U.S. has in terms of wealth management. Is accurate?
It really does. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We, as an Australian-born company, we saw the US obviously as the big market to come and enter, but we really spent our time honing the product in Australia. Australia is much more tightly regulated than the US. It's very, very, very heavily locked down, and so we figured that
I
if
think
we
a lot of advisors here would be a lot of advisors here would be surprised to hear that there's something more
it's
regulated.
yeah, it's one of those things that when I look at DOL, it goes, the proposed legislation there goes only about 20% of the way to the world that poor old Australian advisors have to battle through.
Yeah.
But what it allowed us to do is to really understand in great depth the complexity of the problem. When we came into the US market, what we saw though was a much more mature approach to technology. So in Australia, there's a less mature approach. It's been so beaten down by compliance. There's much more innovation and openness here in the US market. We entered the US market only a couple of years ago. So we came into the space really in very early or very late 2017, very early 2018, and since then we've really made a home, particularly working with complex firms like multifamily offices or RIAs running kind of more than 500 million, where they've got high net worth or ultra high net worth clients. We have some of our clients who fall outside that mix, but really that's where the complexity is that we solve for. And we constantly get feedback from clients that there's just nothing out there that understands that segment's needs as well as we do.
And you set up a home base here in the U.S. in Chicago, correct?
We did, yes.
How did you pick Chicago? How was that?
Look,
great city, I love it. But
firstly, it's a beautiful city. So to any listener from Chicago, thank you. You've done an excellent job. But for us, Chicago, I mean, it's the second biggest wealth management market in the US from our research, at least, certainly in our target market. But it had a lot of other appeal. Obviously, it's in Central Time. There is a great financial services technology ecosystem there, which made recruiting people a useful exercise. It's also well connected to Australia. So for me, I fly backwards and forwards. I've literally just come back to Australia from Chicago last week. But it's very easy to access from Australia, either from the West Coast or up through Dallas. So great people, great connection, and great servicing times, really.
Yeah, that's great. Chicago, beautiful town. I love getting back there as often as I can. You have built Practifi on the Salesforce chassis. Salesforce, too, at one time made a push into the wealth management space, and I think has a wealth management platform with Salesforce of their own. Do you find yourself in competition with them? How does that work? If they're already trying to push into and I believe they were an inaugural wealthmanagement.com finalist award finalist, at least back in our very first awards 6 or so years ago. So where does that stand in terms of the ecosystem?
Sure.
How do you
It's understandably difficult for people to wrap their heads around, but of course there are a number of overlays on the Salesforce platform. We are just one, but we'd like to think we're the best one, of course. So Salesforce is really an organization that has a platform, which is the Salesforce platform, and that's open to partners like us to build and to put products into the market. And then they have their own, I guess, products, Financial Services Cloud being the one that you're referring to now. There was an earlier wealth management product that they attempted a number of years ago. We came out before Financial Services Cloud, so we've been around a little longer than that. There's a fairly rigorous process at Salesforce to get these things up and approved and happening. And so, we are I guess it's a co-opetition arrangement where on one hand, we compete head to head with Financial Services Cloud, but on the other hand, of course, we're a partner to Salesforce. That's a really healthy model. We have a great relationship with the team at Salesforce. They have a great underlying platform. I guess we would contend that it's difficult for such a large firm to have a true vertical focus. So for us, we only do one thing. We make technology that is designed to improve the world of advisors.
Yep. And when you brought the technology to the US and began to show it to advisors and wealth managers, the biggest challenge I assume would be to get them to come off the platform that they were already on. So when you're talking to them, what are your talking points in terms of why your offering is going to be better than what they maybe are already using, whatever it might be? Deeper integration, you say, but give me some more specifics around what you're saying to them.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things. We're in a very fortunate position. If I think back to it was December 2017, and Glenn Elliott, our CEO, and my co-founder and I came on a bit of a discovery tour. We had a few meetings lined up, and we really wanted to test the market. We came for just 2 weeks, and we went home with 2 clients, and we were like, right, well, we established that the product fits, and it was really that we showed the clients the system that we had, and they were just, wow, we don't have anything that can do this in this country. Hurry up and get here. And that was really the start of the journey. We work with a lot of great firms. Many of those firms are managing well in excess of $1 billion in client assets. And as a result, they're very networked. They're sharing information around. And each time we present the platform in front of people, whether they're using Salesforce today, we have people coming from a lot of the, I guess I'd say, the more established or longer standing platforms like Juncture and Redtail and Tamarack and those types of systems as well. But really, they're just not seen something that is capable of managing the complexity of relationship. They haven't seen something that is so custom built so that when you first log in the morning, all of the information you need is presented. It's broken out so that your dashboard is unique to your role. And when you first log in, all of the information you need is right there at your fingertips. So for people who are on the Salesforce platform, they've often spent years and tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars doing customization, and they're a bit sick of doing it. To be honest, they don't want to keep reinvesting in building their own system. So they see Practifi as a way of staying on the platform that they want, but getting a product that is fully supported. And for a lot of others, they're looking at the Salesforce platform and they just think it's too daunting. They know, they've all heard the stories about how much it costs and how you basically have to become a tech company. And we represent a way past that, whether you're an institution or a large RIA. We help you avoid the need for that custom build.
Yeah, it strikes me that you're coming in at just the right time, right? I mean, the story with a lot of the RIAs in the U.S. is that many of these started as breakaways from the brokerage firms, relatively small shops, 1 to maybe 4 advisors in a shop, but increasingly and rapidly growing to become not just practices but full-on businesses, right? Where maybe there's administrative assistants and there's a portfolio team and there's a investment committee and a lead relationship and junior relationship and multifaceted touch points with the end client, that the 4-person RIA shop who was just using a traditional CRM just simply to get the phone number and address and send out the right stuff to the right people at the right time doesn't keep up with. So is it fair to say that a maturing industry here needed a solution that was custom built for this space just because it was growing so rapidly and so quickly?
Correct. And we hear that a lot, that there's a lot of frustration from people when they're talking to us that they feel like what they've really got today in their CRM is a robust but limiting online Rolodex. And what they need now is just much more complexity in the client relationship. They need obviously to capture a lot of compliance data, but they need to connect a much bigger workforce. And as we sit today, obviously a much bigger and remote located workforce. We give people things like real-time collaboration in context of the client record. So there's, whether you're all sitting in an office, whether you're spread around the country in different offices, or whether, as we are today, often sitting at home, what we've got is a platform that you just log into and go. And for a lot of firms, they turn Practifi on. There's literally nothing to do. There's no project to run. It's migrate your data, train your users, and you're live. But we also have a lot of more, larger and even more complex firms who want to customize that experience. And so we don't take that ability away. In fact, we encourage our clients to embrace it. But instead of starting with something raw like Salesforce, you start with something that will work the day you get moving, and then you can just tune and add to that as you go. So this context of having a platform like a native Salesforce, where you then engage a third-party consultant to build it to the bare minimum that you need, that shouldn't be the case, and it's not with Practifi.
The thing that has always bedeviled technology companies, fintech companies in the US in this space has been the integration challenge. And how are you guys handling that, integrating with other vendors? And I know you have a Schwab integration, right? You're on the Schwab platform. How do you guys approach integrations, and what have you found challenging, or maybe not so challenging, but enlightening about that?
Yeah, look, integration is a huge part of the value proposition, and it should be taken for granted, or be able to be taken for granted for the firms. But of course, it's not, and it's not magic. We came into the space initially just looking at what would add the most value up front, and so we went really hard at building relationships with the major portfolio reporting tools. So we have integrations with Adapar that's very rich API-based integration. We work with Orion with their Orion Connect product, and Tamarack and Black Diamond. And so we wanted to combine that CRM and portfolio data straight out of the blocks. Now we're working with custodians. So we have Schwab, we have Pershing. We do things like digital account opening with Schwab. You can interact with custodial alerts. So we're really looking to eliminate the rekeying of data, or the toggling between systems for different experiences. What we find is, we have fully open, very mature APIs. It's one of the benefits that comes of being on the Salesforce platform, and we've put a lot of work in and continue to put a lot of work in over the top of that. We also benefit, of course, that our clients have access to the Salesforce App Exchange. So people like Riskalyze have standard Salesforce apps that they can just plug and play. So there's no integration work that needs to happen there. There's 3,000 odd apps on that app store. And so we see ourselves as being the champion for that integrated experience. And we push really hard to make sure that continues to evolve.
Give me an example of when you were showing the first initial clients the tools that you have, what it was that they saw that they said, wow, that's great. I wish, nothing else that we know of can do that. Give me some more examples of the processes that you've built into the platform that advisors can benefit from.
When we look at Practifi, often when we're showing the system to people, we start with this kind of dashboard experience that everyone comes into. And that's the first wow moment. It's like, wow, I have all this information at a single click. We have within that experience, we have these, we refer to them as snapshot tiles, but effectively they're queries that are constantly asking the database questions so that you don't need to. So show me everyone who has an RMD conversation that needs to happen in the next 90 days. Show me everyone with a birthday coming up. Any kind of query or question that you would normally extract data, analyze, and run a process, and then set about doing each month, the system does for you. And so they're programmable. You can have in any given business for any given role a series of those questions being asked of the database, and the user is prompted. So that's the first wow moment. When we get into a client record, though, particularly when we're dealing with more complex entities, we get into this world where you're looking at the household, and we do very complex householding, but we do multi-generation householding and structures. And that household may own some companies and have some trusts, and we can aggregate them all under one record. So you've got this ability to look at a very complex family relationship with multiple entities in it and see it in one place, see the aggregate of everything, but then to drill down through that information to any level that you want, rather than in a traditional CRM, each of those groups being a client in its own right. So we have those all nested. Then we get into this world where we know that the advice industry, the relationships really build based on referral. Yes, there are teams who go hard at a traditional sales exercise, and we do that pipeline management very, very well. But we know that your influencers, the centers of influence in your business, the referrers, whether they're client, so whether they're partners, maybe they're an attorney that you work with or an accounting firm, we also manage those relationships and pull those to the front. So instead of that being corporate knowledge that's stored in someone's head and lost when they retire, that information is all captured in Practifi. And then you can run workflows and automations around that. Find me all of my top referrers. Find me referrers that we haven't had a referral from in the last 6 months. So we can talk to them and find out why not. So we dig very deeply into those pieces. And then we go really hard at automation. We built a fully custom workflow automation tool so that someone within a business, not someone in a tech team, can configure and manage very complex workflow automation. Full branching that says, if this happens, these are the 5 possible outcomes. And based on which outcome you select, what should happen next? Is it another process? Is it resetting dates? Is it sending an alert? So we do all of those kind of aspects. And people just look at that and say, wow, this is the technology that large enterprises, big institutional firms can afford to have. You're giving it to me in my RIA.
Yeah, and definitely. And as those RIAs grow into becoming larger enterprises themselves, that's the kind of thing they'll need. I like this idea of like business intelligence built into the CRM and what that could provide. Do you have some kind of plans or existing or on the roadmap for kind of feedback loops for advisors who can maybe glean some best practices out of the data that's collected in their CRM? Like, for instance, you talked about referrals, haven't heard from this guy in 5 months, so maybe send him a note. Or even this type of client responds most favorably to this many push notifications or this many contact points. So we can kind of build our communication messages around that data. Is that the kind of feedback that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, look, we capture all those data points and we have some clients who do quite sophisticated analysis of that data. We're also currently playing with some AI capability to look at that information and see what we can feed up into the business. We hook into a huge number of course, we've talked about some industry integrations, but we also hook into things like marketing automation tools. Mm-hmm. And we have clients who go really hard at using that data to determine what list to add clients to, what are their interests, where do they come, how do they prefer to be communicated with, to your example. So all that data is there, and that analysis of that data, we have a very complex, or very rich, I should say, it's actually pretty simple to use, reporting tool that's there that gets you analyzing that data within Practifi. It's really, again, it's a tool that is geared for enterprise level clients, and we work with a number of enterprises here and abroad, but we want to bring that capability to those at scale or growing RIAs.
It really is the history of advisor technology has been a fight for the desktop, right? Who gets to own the screen where the advisor spends most of their time? And I think giving them these kinds of tools or this kind of capability is really crucial, I think, to kind of keeping that attention and keeping them logged into Practifi front and center, as opposed to sending them off or having them log into some other platform, correct? You want them to be kind of living in the Practifi environment.
That's correct. We want it to be more than where they go to look at a client phone number or relate an email. That the days of that are hopefully done. Those systems, they'll work for very small teams who have small client bases and all they need is very simple CRM. But an at-scale business or a business that is growing fast, we handle, for many of our clients, their whole M&A functionality. They're buying a business, they can run that whole process in Practifi. We really want everyone in the firm to see Practifi as the one place that they go to do any standard business function. And then when they're doing something that is specialist, rebalancing a portfolio, for example, we want to give them a seamless way to get to that tool. Mm-hmm. So we become the hub from which they log into other environments.
Yep. Give me a scale for Practifi. I say a new entrant to the U.S., relatively new. But how big is Practifi? How many employees do you have around?
We're 53 employees. We're headquartered in Sydney, Australia. We've got about 21 or 22 of those employees are sitting in Chicago. We're heavily capitalized, which is good and growing hard. We, in the 18 months, 2 years or so coming through to the start of this year that we were putting on clients in the US, we've got clients managing about 100 billion in client assets on the platform, and growing that often around $500 million to $1 billion at a time per client.
Great, that's impressive. No, those are impressive numbers. When you're shopping this around, one question I did want to ask: beyond the looser regulations than you found in Australia, anything else that kind of has surprised you as you go around and talk to RIAs, multifamily offices, wealth managers, independent wealth managers in the US? Anything that kind of surprises you? Anything that you weren't expecting? What are your impressions?
Look, nothing that's really a surprise in the business model, I guess. I'm a little surprised that there has been what are some really big or growing very fast firms who have put up with outdated technology in their CRM space for a really long time, that they're really still running a Rolodex. There seems to be somewhat of a reticence to change because there's a perception that it's really hard. And look, it's not magic for sure. It is complex moving systems, and the CRM is often, as we've discussed, the core platform in the business. We go particularly hard at providing an onboarding service, a bundled offering with Practifi, because we know that their businesses will only continue to grow when they get technology that will scale with them. So it's interesting to me, we have migrated firms that are running a couple of $1 billion who don't have a CRM at all. They're still living in Outlook. So I think that was a bit of a surprise. I expected maybe a more mature existing CRM space.
Yeah. And probably what you're also seeing there is just a little bit of advisors making, as they kind of grow with the small firms, small practice into business, the calculation they're making is, okay, is the disruption worth it? Right? Because things are smooth, things are sailing along. I'm doing okay. Sure, things could be more efficient, things could be a little bit better, but we've got our processes in place. We're doing our thing, and it's just, I'm sure it's, a better solution, but do I really want to unplug everything and replug it back in and go through that whole process? Are the benefits going to be worth it? Is there a tipping point that you found where they kind of bounce up against that, where they say, okay, yeah, now it is the time. Now it is worth it. Now I really do need to think about pulling the plug on everything I have and changing over to something else, something a little more modern. My Outlook's not going to cut it anymore, floating on it for years and years and years, but now it's time. I don't know. I don't even know how you would characterize that, but I mean, is there a place where you see advisors kind of make that decision where the light kind of goes up in their eyes and say, yeah, I do, time for inertia to step off and make a change?
Yeah, look, there are a few tipping points. One of them, of course, is when their existing tech provider is end-of-lifing the platform, and they're forced into that direction. But another one that comes up quite often is when they have the realization that so much corporate knowledge is stored in the original partners, and those people are starting to look at whether they want to retire or move into semi-retirement, and that corporate knowledge has no home. There's nowhere for it to go. And so they really start to struggle. One of the others that we see because of the scale of firms that we're dealing with most often is as soon as they want to start acquiring another firm. So suddenly they have 2 CRMs and they need to work out what they're going to do, or 3 or 4 or 5. As firms come together, and that's often how firms are getting to scale, of course, they're businesses that are coming together. As soon as they're presented with that problem, they no longer have a smooth running business because they can't easily transfer work between them. What we're seeing quite a lot now, and 2020 has been an awful year for everyone, but what we're seeing is with people working remotely, they're finding collaboration really difficult in some of those simpler CRMs. They just don't have the reach or the ability to work in what are otherwise paper-based processes that they would manage in their offices. And so moving to a technology platform that allows them to get around that. Now, the counter to that, of course, is there's fear. It's like, well, but I don't want to change my technology while we're all not in the same location. And we're constantly helping people understand that that process will happen remote to your office anyway. It doesn't matter. The training will be run by Zoom. The team that migrate the data aren't going to sit in your office with you for 2 months. they're going to be remote. And so don't see that as a barrier. And then the other is where there's a realization, and often it's when a firm has grown to the scale where they put a genuine general manager or head of operations in, and they start to look for efficiency. And they start to say, well, hang on, we can't just keep hiring the next person to deal with what is a paper-based process or a cumbersome process. We need technology to do this for us. And so it's that the maturing of the business becomes the catalyst.
Yes, that makes sense. And there's certainly a lot of M&A that's still going on, even despite the pandemic.
Look, the M&A space is really ripping along, which for me is a great sign of the health of the industry. And as we see that, we see more breakaways as well. And we have breakaway firms coming to us who just want something that they can turn on and go. We have those firms who are doing tuck-ins through breakaways or the pure M&A space. And Practifi is really the tool that increasingly people are coming to and saying, well, I don't want to do a tech project. I don't want to buy Salesforce and build it. That doesn't work. But I do want something that's more than a traditional CRM. And we constantly get the feedback that we're the only firm in that race.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Adrian, this has been great. We're at the point. Listen, I do have to ask, I hope everything is going well in Australia. You're getting a kind of a view of two countries dealing with the current global pandemic. I won't ask you to characterize how each country's response has been, but I hope everything is going well for you there in Australia and with your team here in Chicago as well.
Yeah, look, it is a bit of a tale of two stories, but that's a story for another time. But look, thank you for the time today. It's been fantastic chatting with you, David. Forward to the next opportunity.
Yeah, I hope to see you in person at some point in the near future. And congratulations again on your nomination at our wealthmanagement.com Industry Awards.
Fantastic.
Adrian Johnstone, co-founder and chief commercial officer of Practifi.
This content has been made for information and educational purposes only. The views and opinions represent the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of wealthmanagement.com.